Hello everyone, and today we will discuss how to launch an EC2 instance. So as you see, I'm logged into my AWS account, and if you don't have an AWS account, I would highly recommend that you sign up for a free account for yourself. So here I am on my AWS homepage, and as you see, it actually showcases all the services in case you've already visited before and all the other services that are available. Now, all the services that are there are under groups. So as you see, these are the list of services under the compute group. Here you have some database services, here you have management tools, application integration, and that way there are a whole lot of services that are here. Here's machine learning, if you're interested in machine learning, etc., IoT, and a whole bunch of services. So as I go ahead with development of my videos, I will try and explore all of these services to the best of my abilities. If you have any suggestions, etc., do let me know, and I can certainly create a video on that particular service or on that particular topic. But today we will be discussing how to create an EC2 instance. So as you see, EC2 is under the compute group. This is the EC2 service, so let's click on that. Basically, this will allow us, as the tooltip over here suggests, to launch virtual servers in the cloud. So let's click on EC2. So here I am over here, and as you see, it shows you it's kind of a mini dashboard over here. Shows the number of instances, how many dedicated hosts you have, volumes, key pairs, snapshots, load balancers, security groups, placement groups, if any. And I'll touch base on these topics in my future videos. Today, let's just see how to create and launch an EC2 instance. So as you see, here's a launch button. So let's click on launch. Now you will see a whole lot of images that are available. As you see, the step one over here is basically to choose an Amazon machine image, AMI or AMI, depending upon how you would want to pronounce or call it. You see that there are several images over here. You see Linux, you see Red Hat, Ubuntu, a bunch of Microsoft servers as well. There's a deep learning AMI using Ubuntu, bunch of Microsoft servers, as you see, 2006, 2012, and a whole lot of other instances that are available. Now, I would recommend that if you are part, or if you've signed up for a free tier, which most of us have and probably are using a free tier account, check on free tier. So basically that will filter out all the images that are available under your free tier account. So as you see, there's a Linux image over here. You have again Ubuntu, the bunch of Microsoft servers also available, as you see, 2006, etc. So whatever server you want to launch, you can pretty much select that particular image and go further ahead. So for this discussion, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an Amazon Linux instance. Okay, so let's select this particular Amazon Linux instance type, and let's go further ahead. So let's create this particular image, and here I am. So now we are at step 2, and as you see, it asks you basically to select an instance type over here. Essentially, an instance type is nothing more than what size of machine you want to create. How many CPUs you want, how much memory you want. So as you see, there's a memory. It shows you the sizes of memory, and GB. Now this is nothing else but gigabytes. Okay, it's not GB. A lot of people tend to say it as GB, but it's not GB. It's gigabytes. Okay, and feel free to Google it as to what is gigabytes, etc. The amount of storage, which is certainly in GB. Okay, whether it's EBS optimized, what is the network performance, etc. Now we'll get into EBS optimization and all that later on, and what kind of protocol is supposed, whether it's IPv4 or IPv6. And as you see, there are several instance types over here. So the smallest one that you have is T2 Nano, which is the smallest, as the name also suggests. Nano is probably the smallest, and obviously the performance is low to moderate. And then eventually you can pretty much go all the way down to, a monster, choosing a monster type, like probably, I guess, as you see, this I2 over here, this Unite 3. And as you see, these are storage optimized. The size of these instances is humongous, and you probably don't need to create such a huge instance. I would be very careful to create something as big as that, because remember, you're going to incur cost. So if you're practicing and you just want to learn, the best thing is to create a small type. But yeah, just so you know that all of these different instance types are available, and in your production environment, etc., is probably one of those places, depending upon your needs, you might want to create or choose a specific instance type which caters more towards your needs. Now there's a lot of documentation around this, so if you happen to go to AWS and basically search for instance types, it will tell you what kind of instance types are available and what instance type works best under what scenario and for which use case. Okay, so for this discussion, what we are going to do is we are going to select the T2 microtype. As you see, this is free tier eligible. Okay, and that's just to ensure that we don't incur a whole lot of cost. Now, as you see, you can pretty much kind of launch straight from here if you don't want to go into the details of your configuration details. You can pretty much launch from here. Feel free to do that, but if you want to go further ahead and configure the instance details, then just simply select next and go further ahead. So we are going to go ahead and click next over here. Now again, as you see, this is step 3, and basically it asks you how many instances you want to launch, okay, and whether you want to launch it as a part of the auto scaling group. Now I'll create a separate video for this, but again, like if you want to create 1 instance, 2 instances, 3 instances, okay, and again it gives you a purchasing option of whether you want to use spot instances or not. Now spot instances is again a whole different topic, and I'll probably create a separate video on that, but there's several instance types that are typically available over here. Now, what kind of network would you want to launch? Typically, your AWS account will come with a default AWS VPC, okay, which is nothing else but virtual private cloud. And what we are going to do today is that we are going to launch this instance into our default AWS VPC. Now, if you want, you can pretty much create a separate VPC, but that's a whole different topic. And each VPC essentially comes with a couple of subnets in it. So as you see, these are the different subnets which are part of the default VPC that comes in. And generally the subnets which are part of the default VPC are public subnets. Okay, what essentially that means is that any VMs or any machines that you launch in this default VPC under a subnet will have a public IP. That essentially means that you will be able to access it over the internet. So for this discussion, let's just select the default AWS subnet 1, and as you see, I have about 4091 IP addresses available. Now auto-assign public IP, as I was saying, that since we are launching this in a default AWS VPC, it will typically assign a public IP to this VM. Okay, now at this point of time we will not associate any IAM role. Okay, IAM stands for Identity Access Management, and generally what happens is that if the VM that you are trying to launch would want to interact with any specific AWS services, then essentially you attach a role or basically grant permissions to this EC2 instance to kind of interact with that service. Now, if you don't have anything of that sort, you don't need to bother about IAM role. IAM by itself is a huge topic in AWS. Okay, it requires a very deep and a very clear understanding about the permissions that you are assigning, because it is going to go, it's about assigning security, it's about assigning what you can or cannot do. Okay, so we will have a separate video on IAM, but at this point of time, let's not associate any role. This is a shutdown behavior. Typically, what do you want your instance to do once you kind of shut it down? Do you want to enable any termination protection? So basically, if you check this, as the tooltip also suggests over here, that if you check this, then you won't be able to terminate this instance via API or AWS Management Console unless and until you come back over here and disable it. Now, something like this is a good option to be used in production so that accidentally somebody does not terminate any specific EC2 instances, but otherwise you don't need to enable termination protection. The next point over here is monitoring. So if you would want to monitor your EC2 instance and see how it's performing, you may want to enable CloudWatch. Now, CloudWatch is a monitoring tool that comes along and is provided by AWS. And as a part of your free account, you will get some basic CloudWatch monitoring. But if you want to monitor detailed monitoring, as this suggests, then there will be additional charges that will apply. Now, for your knowledge purposes or for experimentation, you do not need to enable detail monitoring unless and until you want to kind of explore what detail monitoring offers you. Otherwise, you are pretty much good with just having the basic monitoring that comes with a free account. The next thing is a tenancy, and as you see, there are these several links that AWS also kind of gives upon kind of detailing upon the different tenancy types. Now, essentially, what the tenancy means over here is that do you want this instance to run on a shared hardware? Basically, you will be sharing wherever this instances will be launched, you will be sharing the hardware with a couple of other tenants, as well as the name itself suggests that it's going to be a shared instance or a shared host where this instance will be launched. Dedicated instance, again, would be that you would be creating this instance on a dedicated host. Okay, the dedicated host essentially says that you will be launching this instance on a dedicated host, but you have the choice of where to launch this instance. Okay, so this actually requires a far more detailed discussion. Okay, and I would certainly recommend you that you visit these links, and I would not want to repeat everything that's already been documented in both of these links, and this will certainly help you to understand more about the differences between shared, dedicated, and dedicated hosts. But for this discussion, I'll be using the shared tenancy type. Okay, and this is I think the T2 unlimited. Again, if you enable this, you can potentially incur additional charges, and there's a link over here which kind of gives you more details about what T2 unlimited is. Okay, now below down, as you see, there are network interfaces attached, and if you want to add additional network interfaces, feel free to click on add device. Otherwise, by default, as you see, you have a single network interface associated. and if you want to add any additional secondary IP addresses, you can certainly do that as well. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and click on add storage. Now by default, you have one single or one volume type associated with your EC2 instance, which is the root type. Now as you see, it is 8 GB in size, and the volume type is general purpose or provisioned or magnetic. Now again, the storage types or the storage volume types by itself is a completely separate discussion, but at this time just keep in mind that by default one root volume type is associated and the size is 8 GB, and IOPS, which by default is 100/3000. Now one thing that I would certainly want to draw your attention to is whether this particular volume type should be deleted on termination. So if that is checked, which by default it is, then this volume type would be deleted on termination. Now if you want your volume type to exist even after this instance type is terminated, ensure that you uncheck this box. Okay. The other thing that I would want to bring to your notice is that depending upon your size of your volume, your IOPS will automatically be provisioned. Okay, so for example, right now it is 8 GB in size. If I make 10, as you see, there is no change. But if I make this 100, you will see that the IOPS will change. So as you see, it has now changed to 300/3000. If I make it 1000, then you will see that the highest is 3000 over here. So depending upon your the size of your volume, your IOPS will change accordingly. Now by default you get a root volume, but if you would want, you can always add an additional volume of your choice. The next thing what we are going to do is we're going to add tags. So tags essentially, as you see, is a key value pair and it is case sensitive. So please keep in mind what values you add, and this basically allows you to kind of associate or identify your machines by a set of tag values. For example, if I want that, hey, the environment should be developed, so basically this tag will be added to instances and volumes that are associated with those instances. The next thing is configuring the security group. Now if you don't have any existing security groups, you can always create a new one. Try to give it a new meaningful name like SG EC2, okay, and then say security group or EC2. Since this is a Linux machine, we are going to enable the port 22 and for any kind of SSH type of communication. Now by default, as you see, it basically allows you to kind of SSH into this machine from pretty much any host anywhere. Now as you see, there are a couple of options: custom, anywhere, or if you just wanted to restrict it, which it kind of gives you a warning also at the bottom that it's definitely not a very good idea to have to allow all IP addresses to access your instance. So the best thing for you would be to say, hey, I would only want to SSH to this machine from my own IP. So let's select that, and as you see, the moment I selected my own IP, the warning disappeared. Okay, and this is my IP. And then finally what it tells you is to review and launch. So it gives you a brief summary of everything that we have selected so far. So as you see, this is a free tier eligible Amazon Linux AMI, and the instance type is T2 micro, and these are security group details. these are our instance details. Okay, the purchasing option is on demand, and the storage over here, as you remember, we had selected to add one volume of size 10 GB. Over here it's not encrypted, and yes, if once I terminate this instance, this volume will be terminated, and we have added tags of environment for both our instances and volume. So now let's launch this. Now, if you have a key pair, you can choose an existing key pair, or you can create a new key pair. Like I'm going to create a new key pair now. It's called as Amazon EC2 demo. Download the key pair, but ensure that you keep the key pair safe. Okay, so let's download this key pair, and as you see, it's downloaded over here. And then let's just launch this instance. Okay, so as you see, it's kind of telling you that your instance is being launched, and yes, obviously it's also notifying you about any estimated charges, if any, especially if you exceed your free tier usage. So then you will incur charges also, although this instant type is free tier eligible. So let's go and look at our launch log. Okay, and this is the instant type. If you want, you can edit the name, Namrata's EC2 instance. Okay. And as you see, it's running right now. Okay, and this is our public IP. So if you want to connect to this particular EC2 instance, then we can. This is IPv4. Okay, and still this is not 100% up. As you say, the status checks is initializing, but once all the status checks are done, then you will see 2x2 over here. Okay, so let's just wait for a few minutes, and then once it is up, you will see that the status checks has changed. I'm just going to pause the video for a little bit so that you know, I can come back and then showcase you once the status checks are done. So yeah, now as you see, we have our status checks done. As you see, it's 2x2. One of the things I would want to showcase to over here is that feel free to use these buttons to get the details panel up or down. I just have one EC2 instance, so you can use one of these options to kind of, you know, to see the details of the EC2 instance. So as you see, this is your instance ID over here. The status is running, so this instance is available. Our security groups are here. If you click on inbound rules, you will see that port 22 is available, and this is the public DNS, this is the public IP, this is the private DNS, this is the private IP address that is associated. And if you scroll down, these are network interfaces that we had, and I guess that's pretty much on the screen. All the status checks are done. Everything is good over here. As you see, by default, you do get some basic CloudWatch monitoring, the basic monitoring that comes with a free account. So as you see, CPU utilization, disk reads, disk read operations, and especially if you're kind of working towards your certification, you want to keep what are the various CloudWatch metrics that are available. Okay, so click on this link to know what are the various metrics that are available, but if you scroll down, you'll be able to see rest of the others and the tags that we associate. So we only associated environment over here, and the name, that is Namrata's EC2 instance. So yep, finally your EC2 instance is now up. So hopefully this is helpful to all of you. If you have any questions, or if you want me to create any other videos and showcase something to you, please post on the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you later in some other video. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye bye.